One Piece manga has finally confirmed that we are now in Elbaf, and the biggest takeaway here is that the Yggdrasil tree and its 9 mythical realms set the stage for a massive fantastical arc that actually hints that Elbaf might be the true origin of every single non-human creature in the One Piece world, including Minks, Tontada, or even the mysterious Oni race. Which then in turn could also have crazy implications for the true history of the One Piece planet relating to things like the Adam and Eve tree. And on top of all that, there was also a super rare triple combo attack from Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, which might actually be setting up another major conflict in the near future story as well. But first, let me explain what I mean by the 9 realms of Yggdrasil and how they might impact the entire Elbaf arc. And this idea comes basically straight out of Norse mythology, which we will be seeing a lot of in Elbaf, I'm pretty sure, where the Yggdrasil tree is essentially the universe in Norse lore. And within this impossibly large tree, we have 9 different realms, which are each basically different worlds with different races who all live there. And I believe that this is actually a massive clue about the true nature of the entire One Piece world as well, because if you break down the actual realms and the mythological creatures who are supposed to live there according to Norse mythology, you can actually draw some pretty interesting similarities to the actual races existing in One Piece. And this is really starting to make me believe the theory that every single non-human race in One Piece actually originates from the Yggdrasil tree to begin with. Which, let me just tell you, is such an exciting reveal and would just be an unbelievable piece of lore if all of this turns out to be true. So let me break down my theory here. Just to start, let's take the realm of Nidavellir right here. Also, I'm probably gonna butcher the names, apologies. Now in the mythology, it's the race of dwarves that lives in this underground realm, and this ties in directly with One Piece because we have already met a tribe of dwarves with the Tontada right here. But what's even more incredible though, I think, is that we do know that around 900 years ago, what could have happened back there, the Tontada actually left their original previous homeland and searched the world for resources, which is how they ended up in Dressrosa to begin with. Meaning that they actually didn't originate there. But the important part to recognize here, I think, is that they once had a different home that has remained a mystery up to this point. So if Oda is really heavily drawing from Norse mythology here, then the realm of Nidavellir makes perfect sense, I think, for the true origin home of the dwarf slash Tontada tribe. But as you'll see, that's far from the only similarity here, because you can match pretty much every single realm here with a race in the One Piece world as well. So let's start at the top with Asgard, realm of the gods, which you probably know from the Marvel series as well. And funnily enough, there are actually not one, but 2 races who could potentially fit inside this realm. First, we have the Lunarian tribe, who we already know were once considered gods who ruled from the top of the world, so placing them at the highest point of the tree in Asgard just makes a lot of sense. And we already do know that the Lunarians were actually hunted down sometime in the past as well, so the fact that they were also targeted fits pretty well with the Tontada, who also had to flee their homeland around the same time as well. Now, on the other hand, we have another race of winged people who could also have originated in Asgard because they are used to living in the sky as well. Plus, we do know that Enel, who is from the sky island Burka, has a pretty strong god complex, so maybe the whole idea of being god is just kind of part of the culture from when they lived in Asgard slash Burka. And of course, we also have the entire idea that Elbaf is the entrance to the Sky Islands, the official one, and that Burka was actually lying at that entrance, so we will see if that actually happens. But next up, after the land of the true gods, we actually get a realm of like sorta gods, I guess, in Vanaheim. And this realm was the trickiest, honestly, to match with a race because the people of Vanaheim were basically deities of wealth, prosperity, and nature. But interestingly enough, there are some versions of this mythology where they could actually see the future, but overall, it is still pretty mysterious. So out of all the races in One Piece, I think the Three-Eye tribe could have potentially originated here, since they are basically the most mysterious race in all of One Piece. On the other hand, the Minks could also potentially have called Vanaheim their home, since they are obviously creatures of nature and also escaped from somewhere to the back of Zanisha at the end of the Void Century. Which now brings us to the traditional Norse home of the giants, Jotunheim. Jotunheim? Oh, anyways. Now, this one is a little bit of a mystery because while this is traditionally the realm of the giants, I actually do think that the normal giants that we see like Dory and Bragi come from what would be the Midgard realm, Earth. And more on why I think that in just a moment, but that would leave Jotunheim for a race like the ancient giants who are much bigger and wilder than the regular ones. realms. I mean, just take Ors here, for example, who was also said to have died in a frozen place, and Jotunheim happens to be known for being in an endless winter, so that fits the bill pretty perfectly. And also, we do gotta remember that it is officially stated that there are different types of giant races in the One Piece world anyways. Just look at Saul, who seems to be some different kind of giant as well. So, why then would I believe that the normal giants would be in Midgard if Midgard is usually the realm of humans? Well, there are actually a few reasons here. First, the normal giants are basically the common race of Elbaf. Plus, the normal giants seem to live in the most normal-looking houses. This is also the place where they seemingly interact with humans, such as Mother Caramel and Shanks' crew, so I would guess that the places that we've actually seen so far in Elbaf in the past would most likely be considered Midgard, also exactly on sea level at the shoreline, which is where it would be in the tree as well. Which brings us to Niflheim, which is a misty, cold realm in itself, and we actually have the perfect example of giants who would fit here as well with the Yeti Cool Brothers from Punk Hazard, because these giants also once again are very different from the regular ones we've seen because of their full body fur that would be perfect for living in an eternally frozen land. And just the opposite of Niflheim is Muspelheim, which is the realm of heat and fire. Now honestly though, we don't have a really fire-based race in One Piece besides the Lunarians, I guess, but since I already have them up in Asgard at the moment, I think something like the Oni race like Kaido or Yamato would fit pretty nicely in this realm as well, because the Onis do seem to be something that have been hinted at over and over again with all these characters having horns, but has never properly been introduced or explained. Now, the last two realms here are a little bit of a mystery. You may have noticed that I skipped Alfheim and Helheim, and that's because these two places have a lot more mystery than nearly any other realm in Norse mythology. First, Alfheim is said to be the home of the Light Elves, but we've never really seen a race of elves in One Piece before. But, and this is where I'm getting really excited, that of course doesn't mean that we won't. And since we already have dwarfs, giants, and so many other fantastical creatures, I for one would be absolutely amazed if we weren't introduced to a race of elves at some point as well to complete the kind of classical mythical creature checklist in One Piece as well. So yeah, what I'm saying is we might get to see elves during the Elbaf arc. Now, that just leaves us with Helheim though at the bottom of the tree Yggdrasil around the roots, which just like the name suggests is basically hell or the land of the dead. So I don't think that a specific race originally called this place their home, but if that actually exists in Elbaf as well, there might be some really cool things with the underworld that Oda could do as well. Now, that is all the realms, but you may have noticed that there is one major race that I completely left out. Did you catch it? Well, that would of course be the Fishman race in One Piece, whose connection to Elbaf I will also talk more about in just a few moments with their connection to the Adam tree through the Sunlight Eve tree. But yeah, that's pretty much the basics of the realms here to get us into this video, and I want you to fully understand the importance of all of this here, because if Elbaf and the Yggdrasil tree truly are the original home of all these different One Piece races, then just think about all the incredible lore and history and information that we could be getting during this arc as well. Seriously, we could learn why humans took over the world instead of any of the other races. We could learn why there are so many stupidly large creatures like Sea Kings or even the super elephants like Sunisha in the world. We could even learn why Nika and Joyba are connected to all of these races, and I really have to applaud Oda here if all of this is actually true, because all the heavy lore implications, a Yggdrasil tree with 9 realms, is just such an incredibly cool way to structure the entire arc if that's actually what he's going for. Because just like with any major One Piece arc, the actual landscape and geography of the island plays a huge role in shaping the overall narrative of the arc. Shout out to my friend Tekking. I mean, he knows that geography is everything. I mean, just think about Wano, where we were separated into all these different continent bits, which allowed the samurai to build their own rebellion. Or in Water 7, where the sinking island played such a massive role as well. But to bring all of this back to Elbaf, if we really do have the true Yggdrasil tree here with 9 separate realms, then you just have to imagine that Oda will use most, if not all of the realms as some part of the structure of this arc. And I mean, since we're theorizing here, I mean, let's just go a little bit crazy. What if, for example, different Straw Hats are all separated into different realms to accomplish some task to progress the arc? You know, maybe there's like a mini boss or some piece of a puzzle to find in each different world, and if that would be true, then we of course have to speculate which realm I think each Straw Hat should potentially visit. First up, no question, questions asked, Luffy would clearly be going up to the land of the gods, Asgard, since he is known to take down gods all throughout the story. And why would Elbaf be any different? On the other end, Brook of course makes perfect sense to be down in Helheim for obvious reasons. Now, Frankie is a little bit of a question mark though. The only obvious connection he has to one of the realms is Nidavellir, where he could see all of the fantastic creations of the dwarves, but Usopp also has strong connections to the dwarves. However, if Usopp is truly going to be a brave warrior of the sea, I think sending him to the realm of Jotunheim makes way too much sense, since it would be the realm with, well, the largest giants. Which then leaves Jimbei to visit Niflheim, which is probably the worst connection, but I couldn't really find any better place for the Straw Hat Helmsman. Then I could see Sanji ending up in Vanaheim, since that realm is the most connected with food and nature, and then Nami visiting the potential light elves in Elfheim, or actually now I think about it, maybe Sanji goes visit the elves, because I mean, elf ladies and Sanji seems to match pretty perfect. I mean, you can imagine what that would look like, right? I mean, we got the mermaid thing. Now Robin here would obviously go wherever her long lost friend Sol is, which I think will be probably in Midgard, the main part of the island, which basically just leaves us with Zoro to fight his way through the fire and Onis in Muspelheim, which just leaves one major question with Chopper. Where is he gonna go? And also, where is Chopper? Well, since he already seems to be missing in this chapter, I wonder if his disappearance will be a major plot line throughout the arc potentially. I mean, on the other hand, it would be absolutely hilarious, I think, if the Giants of Elbaf treated Monster Point Chopper as some sort of god or deity, since they already call some other large animals gods as well. Plus, interestingly enough, North lore includes these 4 stag-like creatures that all feed on the Yggdrasil tree as well, so maybe that bit of lore could play a role in Chopper's future as well. And we'll of course talk more about some other mythological creatures we will probably see in Elbaf as well later in this video. Clearly though, if the Straw Hats were to be separated individually like this, or even in small groups, that brings up the question of how long will Elbaf overall actually be? Now, of course we have had Oda's infamous 5 years until One Piece end statement in the past, but honestly, I don't really see how Elbaf can not be another mega arc similar or even worse than Wano. And by worse, I mean actually better, because the longer the better. Let's be real, we want One Piece to stick around. I mean, this arc has literally been hinted at longer than any other in the entire story, potentially with the exception of Fishman Island. And I do know that Wano had a ton of build-up throughout Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, leading to the ultimate conflict with Kaido, but Elbaf has just so much more potential because of the major conflicts we could be getting in this arc. I mean, just listen to all of this. First up, we have the mystery of the final road poneglyph and the knowledge that Saul saved everything from Ohara. Then there's also a possible epic conflict with Shanks. There's of course also the giant Prince Loki, who has to play some sort of role as well, right? Also actually have a video coming up next week talking about potential Straw Hats, and I suggest you check it out, you might be surprised. Plus, with basically every major island we go to, the Straw Hats play the role of savior for some sort of local oppression, right? So I can pretty much guarantee that we will have a larger overarching narrative than you might expect here. And that's not even mentioning what might possibly be the most important narrative aspect, which is of course the true history and lore of Nika, and maybe something about Joy Boy as well. Because from what we saw in Egghead Island, there are very strong hints that there's actually a giant religion based around the sun god Nika. Giant as in the religion is from the giants, not that the religion is that big, but could be, I don't know. Despite that though, there are a few clues that hint that the Nika religion is not actually the most dominant belief in all of Elbaf. Because in this very chapter, we see that these giants here seem to worship a rabbit god and even put a crown on this giant cat. And on top of that, we don't know a lot about Prince Loki to begin with, but from the little that we've seen of him, he doesn't really seem like a guy following a belief in freedom and joy, or maybe he does. We'll see. I mean, we'll find out. So I can't imagine that the belief in Nika is kind of like a lost or hidden type of religion in Elbaf that only few people practice, basically. Which might be the perfect setup for Luffy to come in and save the giants and then basically restore that faith in their original deity. Which should then lead to more hints about who Nika was and what happened to the sun god and how they're connected to Elbaf. At least that's what I'd personally love to see. Anyone else up for a Nika flashback? Like, yes please. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm super hyped about the entire Joy Boy Void Century narrative, but now that we know more about it, I'm actually almost more excited to learn more about the history before the Void Century with Nika and potentially what happened before Jorba was ever born. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of cool stuff there, and I hope we get some of it revealed in Elbaf. But now, after all that speculation based on the Yggdrasil reveal and confirmation that we are, in fact, in Elbaf now, let's talk about this monstrous combo attack right here. Because, wow. I mean, look at it. It's just super, and I can't stress this enough, super rare to get all three of these combine their powers in a fight, but there is more importance to this really cool scene than just being a hype moment. Because if you look at it a little bit differently, it took the Straw Hats' 3 strongest fighters working together to take out a single big cat. And if that's the power level of Elbaf, then the crew might be in serious trouble here. Because, come on, how strong is this one random animal? First commander level, admiral level? I mean, maybe not quite, but you get my drift here, because these 3 didn't even use their strongest attacks. But still, I'm kind of worried for the rest of the crew if this is the base lowest power level of all the animals on Elbaf. I mean, talk about scary. And speaking of the word Elbaf here though, I kind of feel like we need to start some sort of counter for all the fables and fairy tales that we'll get to see throughout this arc. Because as some fans have pointed out, in this chapter, we actually start out with a rabbit god and a cat as the 2 central animals here. And this is actually very similar to the story of Alice in Wonderland, where 2 of the first creatures that Alice meets are the white rabbit and the Cheshire cat. Can we just sit back for a moment? And I mean, because I'm just really trying to fully comprehend right now that we are now actually in Elbaf. Can you imagine? I mean, seriously, we have been waiting nearly 1,000 chapters since this island was first hinted at, so to be here now is just absolutely incredible. I mean, I still remember when Whole Cake Island or Wano started, and like, I mean, that we're here now feels really unreal. And obviously there's still a bunch of other questions spinning around in my head right now, such as what is going on with these Lego buildings? I mean, it is still weird, right? Even if it's Lego for giants, but for some reasons the giants in this chapter just seem like it is normal, even though we've seen other giant buildings that resemble more the classic Viking wood cabins. And so it's kind of starting to make me wonder if this entire place is under some sort of enchantment or a spell that has transformed the place into a Lego fantasy land. The Lego land. Let's go. Because surely not all of Elbaf will just be straight up built out of Legos, right? Right? I mean, I personally kind of hope. I mean, it would be cool, don't get me wrong, but also a little bit weird. And speaking of magic and enchanting here though, if there really are going to be 9 realms in Elbaf, then one of my biggest questions is, of course, how are they all connected? Are they literally all just part of this massive tree we see in the background, and you can just reach them with some sort of bridge, perhaps like a rainbow Bifrost bridge? Or are the realms actually connected magically, and you kind of have to go through some sort of portal or gate to actually reach any of the others? I mean, that would at least explain how Luffy and his group got to go to Elbaf so quickly and so far ahead of Dory and Broggy and the other Straw Hats, who are still somehow on the way to the island right now, out on the ocean. But let's bring this actually back to the tree here though, because while Yggdrasil was somewhat confirmed in this chapter, there's actually another tree that we're expected to find in Elbaf as well, which might be the same one, of course that being the famous treasure tree Adam. We do know that it is supposed to be in Elbaf because it supposedly comes from a tree in a war-torn country. We do know that it's probably in Elbaf because its wood supposedly comes from a tree in a war-torn country, which is pretty much the same way that Elbaf has been described as well. So the question remains, is Yggdrasil just the same as the Adam tree, or is the Adam tree a separate tree that we might find somewhere else in Elbaf? That's a pretty good question, but if it is actually on Elbaf, I'm pretty sure that we will get to see it because of the connections with the Thousand Sunny, which is made out of Adam wood, if you remember. Frankie bought that on the black market, probably from Stussy by all that we know by now. But also, while we're talking about legendary trees, do you remember when I mentioned that the Fishman race didn't really fit into Elbaf? Well, that could actually be because they would be the only race to come from the other famous One Piece tree, the Sunlight Tree Eve. So maybe all the non-human races originally come from one of the 2 legendary trees. Also, I do want to remind you guys, the Sunlight Tree Eve and then potentially something related to the moon with the Adam tree. I mean, you kind of have the sun god Luffy, you have something like the Minks who are connected to the moon. So sun and moon and these like mythological trees, there's definitely something with like creation and the origin of the One Piece world here, right? I mean, Adam and Eve, you get my drift. I'm actually working on a whole video just about Bible references in the story, and I think that will be pretty cool when that comes out as well. But anyway, since my mythology brain is really going into overdrive here, let's discuss some of the other legendary Norse creatures that we could see showing up in Elbaf as well. Because let me tell you, there are a ton. The two most important ones I think we could see are the eagle and the nidhogg. Now these are two of the most important creatures connected to Yggdrasil, where the eagle sits on top of the tree and creates these giant windstorms with its wings. Interestingly enough though, we may have already had a hint about the eagle with this hanging image right here, which could mean that the Straw Hats are already close to the eagle's realm. Now on the exact opposite side of the tree down at the roots is the nidhogg, which is a dark dragon-like creature that is said to gnaw on Yggdrasil's roots and trade insults with the eagle at the top of the tree. So don't be surprised if we get to see another dragon in the story once again. Maybe this is even the ancient home of all One Piece dragons originally anyways, since we talked about all the mythical creatures potentially originating here anyways. However, those aren't the only creatures we could see. My personal favorite of the Norse creatures is this giant squirrel who just runs up and down the tree carrying insults and messages between the eagle and the nidhogg. But also, since we have a Loki, I wonder if we will also have a Thor character or the Valkyrie even, who are these fierce woman-winged warriors. If it's not Loki, maybe Thor could even be the person that the Straw Hats end up befriending to help set up the initial conflict here. Then there's also the Draugr, which are these undead spirits, and the Norns, who are these weavers of human fate, which I could actually see tying in quite nicely with the Three-Eyed tribe. Regardless of what crazy creatures and new characters we will get to see though, this is honestly my personal favorite part of any new One Piece arc, because at the beginning there's just so much mystery and so much that could happen, plus all the new outfits. So we have characters like Luffy just so excited to be in a new place versus someone like Nami who's literally already freaking out about their situation. In a nutshell, there is just so much potential for this to become one of the best arcs in One Piece that I personally just can't wait to see what direction Oda actually will take us in. But the biggest question we have to ask is this: will Elbaf actually be enough to top the absolute masterpiece that was the previous Egghead Island arc? I mean, we had so much new technology, lore, breathtaking fights, so much so that Egghead possibly did what no other arc has done in the past. And if you want to see exactly why Egghead Island succeeded where Wano kind of failed, you can watch that video below right there. As always, thanks so much for watching, and thanks to all our amazing Patreons right here. If you also want to support the channel and all the cool and special projects we do there, including all of our artwork and also some Patreon exclusive content, go check that out right there and help support what we do here. I really can't stress how much that means to us. Thanks so much, and I will see you hopefully in the next one.
Crocodile is clearly gender pilled.
Crocodile might be Luffy's mother.
I wonder what happens if he eats a rumble ball.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.